Tropical Storm Gordon is making landfall near the Alabama-Mississippi border at this hour. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on the tropics, and you can see the entire Atlantic basin right now. We have a tropical storm making landfall on the Gulf Coast of the United States. We have a strengthening hurricane, 100-mile-an-hour Category 2, that's Hurricane Florence, and that's out in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's causing a little bit more concern tonight. We have an invest area designated as 92L, and that is very, very likely 90% chance from the hurricane center to develop as it moves on off towards the west, and more waves behind it off Africa. So the Atlantic has turned on as we head towards the peak of hurricane season. Now here's the latest on Gordon as of 10 p.m. Central Time, that's 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Gordon was making landfall near 30.3 north, 88.4 west. Winds were 70 miles per hour, so it was just below hurricane strength. And it was moving northwest at 14. And again, we do have storm surge warnings out from Biloxi, Mississippi to Dauphin Island. We have a hurricane warning from the mouth of the Pearl River all the way over to the Alabama-Florida border, because we could have gusts exceeding hurricane force in that area of the Gulf Coast. And you can see now, there's the radar imagery straight out of the Mississippi Alabama coastline. This one's from Mobile, Alabama. There's the eye wall, what appears to be a developing eye wall, pushing right in towards the Mobile Bay area there on the right side. So any storm surge values will be pushing up there. And this area of the coastline, as we know from Nate last year, and of course Katrina back in 2005, and Camille back in 69, and many, many other storms, this whole area, this little inlet here from New Orleans to Pensacola is very susceptible to high storm surge. It's just the way the shallow waters and then the push up from the storms and the marshy areas, it's just a perfect setup for flooding. And we're going to deal with that as Gordon pushes in, and you can see the center just crossing the coast there, and it will rapidly weaken, but that does not mean we will not have more heavy rainfall. You can see it's very lopsided and disorganized, so a lot of the heaviest rain falling over areas of Monroeville and Pensacola, maybe even over to Panama City, you guys getting it. And if you're further north, Columbus, Greenville, Tuscaloosa, Jackson, you guys are going to get it as Gordon pushes inland. How much? Meh. You could get up to 6 to 10 inches. Isolated amounts could be higher, especially right around where landfall is taking place. You could see it's taking place right at the border, so right on that right side is where the heaviest rain will be, and that'll be spreading all the way up into Arkansas and even areas of Texas and Oklahoma within the next 3 days. So Gordon is a fast-moving tropical storm, a high-end tropical storm, making landfall on the Mississippi-Alabama border at this hour. All right, now, Florence became a hurricane, and it's exceeded our expectations and the hurricane centers. Winds are up to 100 miles per hour, so Florence is now a Category 2 hurricane. Not a major hurricane, that would be a 3. And it's moving west-northwest at 12, and the forecast track and the intensity are very uncertain. Right now, the best idea is that Florence is going to maintain this west-northwest course into the weekend, and then perhaps pull a little northwest by the early part of next week. But this is slow. You're talking 5 days, and it's still way out here. So we're going to be dealing with Florence for a while. And there is some indication that if high pressure builds into the north too much, and it blocks Florence from getting out, Florence could possibly jog back west or even west-southwest and end up becoming some sort of a threat to Bermuda or perhaps the east coast of the United States, to say nothing of the northern Bahamas. So if you are in those areas, keep an eye on Hurricane Florence, even though it's a long, long way from the threat of landfall. It's still a hurricane. Look at that. You can see this flattening here. See that? See how it's getting just pounded by wind shear and dry air? But Florence is resilient. It's fighting it good. And it's looking much better organized right around that core. And it's been popping out an eye intermittently during the day. and so it has cranked up to about 100 miles an hour, which is a powerful hurricane. So Florence will be out there for a while, and the environment could get a bit more favorable by the time the weekend is over. But if Florence has gotten to a Category 2, I don't want to see what could happen if Florence actually gets into a good environment. So we're going to watch that. You see this wave leaving Africa behind Florence? It's another system. Invest 92L. You can see the computer models keep this system moving pretty much west or west-northwest through 5 days, and it is possible that areas of the northern islands would have to deal with this in about a week or so, but it's still a long way away. Of course, the computer models with Florence are showing this kind of westward bend too, and that's starting to get a little bit concerning. You can see the Canadian model makes it right off the coast of Cape Hatteras. That would be problematic. So there is a lot of uncertainty. Is Florence going to just turn right out to sea and we'll never see her again? Or is she going to bend back west and cause problems? And that is the big question. This was the GFS model 18Z run. And look what it does with Florence. It brings her up. She gets blocked. The high pressure builds in. She goes back west. Watch how high those heights get above it. That pink, that is some strong high pressure. Normally this time of year, and you people who like fall, you know what I mean. We have troughs coming off the East Coast. Normally we'd sweep Florence right out. But there's a lot of indication that might not happen, and I'm getting a little bit more concerned about that. And behind Florence, there comes our other system and another system. And that would be Helene and Isaac, if that occurred. To say nothing of the European model, which also pushes Florence right into a ridge and then has 3 systems behind it. That would be Helene, Isaac, and Joyce. So the switch has turned on for the Atlantic Basin, with a tropical storm making landfall on the Gulf Coast tonight and a strengthening Category 2 hurricane in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We'll keep tuned and see what happens. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll see you guys next time.